Hi, I'm B. Come along with me while I testify. So I want to give you more of my testimony. I haven't actually looked at that testimony video that I made a while back, so I'm not sure where I left off exactly. But I'm just I'm feeling the unction to share with you. So I'm just gonna share with you. So I had this radical experience or encounter with Jesus through the revelation of Psalm 23 that I was awoken with, and then which I learned and recited, and then on the day that I finally had it fully memorized and recited it, the Father averted a bullet from striking the right side of my face. And it was so close that I felt it whiz by. So that was a really radical experience, which I was already pretty alert just simply from being woken up with this psalm in my head, different portions of Psalm 23. And if you haven't seen that video, I would encourage you to go and watch it, because it's pretty detailed, and it really talks about my experience and sort of the things that were leading up to that experience, and how it really woke me up. So I was already pretty alerted, and then of course, when you have a near miss like that, and especially when, you're in the act of reciting Psalm 23, and yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Yeah, it does something. It does something. It's extra phenomenal. So so that's the first part of my testimony, but there's a lot more to it, and there's even some parts that are leading up to it that involves someone that I love very dearly, who has battled with addiction and some other traumatic experiences and crises, and those things sort of continued after I had this experience. And after I had this experience, I began to really feel this hunger for the Word of God, and this hunger to know Him and to understand Him and to be close to Him in a way that I've never experienced. Now, I've always been a very, very spiritual person, and I've always felt like I've had a relationship with the Creator, and I think in some ways I have had a relationship with the Creator. When I look back on my life, I know that He has been with me through everything, since before I was even conceived. He had a purpose for me, and He I've experienced things as a child that children should not experience, and people make the choices that they make when they They just make the choices that they make, and of their own free will, and other people get caught up in that and get hurt by that. And but the Lord will purpose those things for our good, even if we don't recognize that that's taking place, even when we don't understand in the moment that that's what's going on. The Lord is at work behind the scenes to purpose everything in our lives for our good, and ultimately to lead us through that narrow gate into his promise, into his salvation, into his wholeness, and all the beauty and the majesty and the glory that he created us for. And so no matter how lost we might be, or how deep in the mucky darkness of the world we might be, the Lord is at work for us, because he loves us, and he is our Father, and he is unlike any earthly father, and he cannot be compared to anything that we know. And we often try to make those comparisons, and they always fall short. They always fall short. He's beyond anything that we can fathom. So, yeah, all that to say, I don't have notes, because I just don't really, I just am speaking authentically. I'm not here with notes or anything prepared. I'm just talking about my experience and my story. And so bear with me through it. So why is that important to know? Just, it's shaped my life and the choices that I have made in my life. And I've made a lot of choices that are very far from godly or Christian. And but God is so good and so faithful that even before I said yes to Jesus, even before I understood the gospel and was able to embrace Jesus and embrace him as my Lord and as my Savior, he was making a way for me. He was walking with me. He was leading me on the way. And there's a scripture, I don't have it marked, it's in the Old Testament, some point before the book of Isaiah. I can tell you that, because that's where I'm at right now. But there is a verse that says that the Lord leads us on the way, even through our sin, even when we are in our sin. And so I just take that as some encouragement, and I would just share that with you to hopefully encourage you wherever you are at in your life and your walk in this life, whether or not you're a believer, just to be encouraged that the Lord does see you, and he wants you to receive his promise. He wants to give you good gifts, because he is a good father, and he sees the things that you're walking through. And so every time we have an intuition, and it leads us to something better. That's him. That's him. Every time, And sometimes it's not always a pleasant experience, and it's him. But it's protecting us from going astray. Sometimes, he intervenes, and we don't get what we want, or something happens to us that we view as being unpleasant, but is actually averting something that could really derail us from walking into his promise. And that's him. That's him at work. So my past has influenced others. And of course, not solely. I'm not solely responsible for having influence upon others and thereby influencing choices that they make in their life. There are certainly, I am one of many, right? But I bear some responsibility for those things. And that's just important, something that's important to acknowledge in this testimony, because of that responsibility, then also as I have grown closer to the Lord and dealt with some crises involving other people and poor choices that they have made, I have taken my responsibility very seriously and taken it to the Lord for healing and for deliverance and protection and provision, and the Lord has been there in the most miraculous ways. And I have watched him work. A part of my experience in this human body and this human life has been one of, since early childhood, being able to see into the spiritual realm and to hear into the spiritual realm, to see things that other people cannot see, and hear things that other people cannot hear, and that has, I think that has, is something that has always been with me, and my view about what that is has changed over the years, and it's fluctuated. I mean, it's been in flux since I was a child. My understanding of it and how I think about it, how I view it, what it means for me as a person, what it means about me, and what it means about the world, and all those things has been in flux for most of the time, because I've always been like learning, studying and learning over the course of my life. I've always been a deeply spiritual person. I've always been interested in the divine, in spiritual things, in cultivating a depth of compassion, equilibrium, equanimity, harmony with others. I've always been interested in the idea of helping others. Since I was a child, I've been called to these things. They've been important to me. And if I had lived in a different life, I probably would have become a nun of some sort. But, that's not the life that I have lived. But my my inner self is very much called in that way, and I've been shaped by the Creator's hands to be this way. And so I have seen him at work. I have seen the Spirit of the Lord at work, working in the hands of first responders to revive someone I love so deeply. On more than one occasion, I've seen emergency room hospital staff. I've seen the Spirit of the Lord at work in them. And not just for my loved one, but on the floor, tending to people in crisis. I've seen the life pass out of someone that I love, only to be returned. Only to be returned moments later. And, we do have these life-saving medications. And they are a blessing. But it is the Spirit of the Lord who gives life and who takes away life. It is our Father in heaven. Not a drug. He gave us the ability to make these medications. He gave us the ability to use science to create science. I mean, he's the creator, but he gave us the ability to co-create with his Spirit and to develop technology and science and all sorts of things that we enjoy today in the world that did not exist thousands of years ago. And there's more than that, because there's just such a vast mystery at work. And there's more than we can even begin to imagine. Nonetheless, all these things that we have made are only possible because of him, and because he allows it to be so, and sometimes because he wishes it to be so. And life and death is in his hands, and in his hands alone. And so as I grew in this hunger to know the Lord and to know his word and read his word, and I began to just devour the word of God. And I started by purchasing one Bible, because I realized, I was continuing to wake up with scripture in my mind. I would wake up in the morning and I would just have a scripture in my mind out of the blue, out of nowhere, as someone who hadn't even looked at a Bible for over 30 years, as someone who had considered herself a witch, self-proclaimed witch, and I was studying my ancestral traditions and learning their ways, and and ways of healing, and, you know, studying the 9 noble virtues, and, you know, all of these things, and teaching others, and, you know, having studied world religion and spiritual paths for 30 some odd years, and just, you know, as someone who was, you know, respected to a certain degree, and thought of as an elder. This was a radical change. Although I will say that I always respected Jesus. I always thought of him, I always believed he was a historical figure, and that he was one among many magnificent teachers, if not the most magnificent teacher ever to have walked the earth. So I was never closed off to him, and in that way, you know, but I was mistaken about the nature of Jesus Christ and his identity. So, and I had this radical experience, and then I just kept waking up with scripture in my mind, and so then I would have to look it up, and I would look it up on my phone. And I don't really care for reading things on a screen. I don't really care to be online. Things have gone this way, and I have lived my life this way, and for a good portion of my life I was on all the social media like everybody else, and, you know, using it for my livelihood, and then I got off it, and it was actually after I was off of social media that these things were happening to me. Not that I think that they're related to each other, except that maybe there was more space in my head, more space in my heart. I was less cluttered with all of the cacophony of noise, mental noise that we are bombarded with when we are on social media. So, yeah, so I would have to look it up on my phone, and then I just got tired of that, and I didn't want to do that any longer, and I wanted to hold something tangible in my hands. I'm really a fan of reading a book that's made out of paper. I much prefer that. It's easier on my eyes, and it's just a full-bodied sensual experience that I really enjoy. I enjoy the smell of books. I enjoy the sound of the page turning. I enjoy like holding a book close and falling asleep with it on my chest, and, you know, there's just something about that I really enjoy, and I wanted to have a copy, and so I purchased a Bible, and soon thereafter I wound up purchasing another Bible, and then I purchased several Bibles, and I purchased some extra biblical text, and then I wanted to read everything ever written about Jesus, and so I purchased some books written by Hindu saints about Jesus and their interpretations of the Beatitudes, and which are actually really great. I recommend them for people to read them. I think there's some really good insights there. There are there are Hindu sects that worship Jesus and chant praise Jesus all day long. So, but there are some Hindu teachers that have really given some great talks about the Beatitudes that I think are worthwhile. They're not Christian, but they are worthwhile, and I think they're edifying, and I think that they can enhance your walk. So there's that. That's a little side note. But I just consumed everything I could find about Jesus. I was consuming it. I started to search on YouTube, everything I could find. I started listening to every sermon I could listen to. I started watching every Christian content creator that I could find. I was just like voraciously taking in as much as I possibly could. I binged watched The Chosen, which also I highly, highly recommend. I think it just is an amazing series that brings to life the gospel unlike anything I've ever seen. You know, and I've seen most of the historical Jesus movies that were made like back in the 70s, and I've seen, and earlier than that, and you know, all of the children's shows, the Christian children's shows, and of course, you know, The Passion of Christ that Mel Gibson made, and which is really, really good, profoundly good, but also like very difficult to watch, and especially if you have if you've experienced any violence in your life, it's I think even more difficult to watch, but still worth watching. I think it's a good to watch because it's important to get a better grasp of what the finished work of the cross means and what that was really like. And also listening to Jim Caviezel talk about his experience playing Yeshua, and in that movie, and the things that happened to him while playing Yeshua is also very interesting to listen to. But The Chosen is different than anything I have ever seen, and it just truly comes alive, and the nature of Yeshua, I think, is portrayed in a way that I don't think has ever been portrayed before. And I think that the Holy Spirit is working through that series, and you know, people are being saved. They're watching that series, and it's awakening in them a hunger just as my hunger had been awakened, and they're getting saved. And it's actually the Chosen series that really started to awaken this desire in me to get baptized. I never really understood baptism until I saw that, and then I understood that what the baptism was about, at least at that time for me, the way that I understood it was that becoming baptized, you know, a full immersion water baptism was really about it's not about saying yes to Jesus, to his salvation, but it's about saying yes to following him and becoming a disciple of him. And I wanted that. Every fiber in my being longed for that, and I felt desperate for it. And during this period of time, this, you know, like year and a half or so between my experience of having this radical encounter, of Jesus through Psalm 23 and this process of diving deep into the Word and trying to take in every possible thing from every possible vantage point from every person who loved Jesus, no matter what walk of life or what religion or non-religion or spiritual path or whatever, even all of the Christ consciousness people and all of it. I was studying all of it. I was investigating all of it. For this year and a half between my encounter and when I got baptized. And during this period of time, as my hunger grew, spiritual attacks grew. And the attacks were on not just me. The attacks were coming against people that I loved, people closest to me, vulnerable people who have their own inner demons, their own shadows to contend with, their own histories of trauma to contend with. And for whom I had some level of responsibility. And so these spiritual attacks were escalating exponentially as I got closer and closer and closer to baptism. And it was literally life and death multiple times and in different ways. Hang on. Okay, so exponential spiritual attacks. That's what I was experiencing, and I feel like I need more light. Hang on a second, it feels really dark. Hold on. Okay. So, yes, life and death, and in different ways, life and death. And I found myself diving into praying spiritual warfare. I found myself contending for my loved ones, but also for myself, because I was also dealing with attacks in my sleep, in my dreams. I was dealing with entities in my home and in my room. I was dealing with thoughts, really awful thoughts that I hadn't had for a long time, that I thought that I had healed from. And it just weird things going wrong all the time, and just all kinds of interesting things that were happening. And so I would, play worship music often, and I would put on spiritual warfare prayers, or, what they call like soaking scriptures, like where you just have scriptures are just read for hours on end, and so that I could like sleep at night. I would have those play through the night, and I started to anoint my house and my home, and pray, Psalm 91, and I started learning more of those, and then I started looking, like all I wanted to find were the different scriptures that I could use to proclaim, you know, God's protection. And then God started to lead me to look at scriptures that were all about his provision and his abundance and his love, and make a list of those. And I started to list those. And then I started to really look at my childhood in a completely different way. And I started to discover other people who had had similar childhoods to mine, who had been through ritual abuse and experimentation and things like that. And I started to see myself, and I started to pray differently. And then I you know, this all shaped me into this, what I would say as a prayer warrior now. But these things just kept increasing and increasing and increasing. And then, you know, I got to the point where I knew that I wanted to get baptized, and I was seeking the Lord about it. And I asked him to show me a sign about getting baptized. And then he showed me, it's so funny, because then all of a sudden, there were like 3 YouTube videos either talking about baptism or showing baptisms. And then something got emailed to me about something completely unrelated, a health freedom event that, you know, looked interesting to me. And I was like, oh, I think I want to go check this out. There's going to be speakers there that I really respect. People who do work on child trafficking, which is something that's important to me. And so I thought, okay, I'll go there. And then I noticed that there were also going to be immersion baptisms happening. And I was feeling this urgency to get baptized. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the drive. It was like a 14-hour drive. But I was just like, I'm going to do it. And I know I won't be able to be here to supervise this person, this loved one. But I'm just going to go because I need to get baptized. Like, it has to happen. I know it has to happen as a part of this battle that I'm in. The devil is trying to keep a hold of me, and I have to get baptized. And then that night that I was set to go, my loved one experienced an overdose. And so I couldn't go. And I have to tell you too, that a part of this whole thing was, you know, I did not want to commit to going to a church at all. I did not want to be around church people. I did not want to even have that conversation with people who are in the church. AKA religion. I didn't want that. I wanted to be as far away from that as I could be. I wanted Jesus, but I didn't want the religion. And I didn't want to have to talk to people, because I have such a storied past. I have a past that is filled not just with trauma, and not just witchcraft, but I was a sex worker. I was a dominatrix. I was performing burlesque. I was a drag king. I was gay. I was so gay. And, you know, living this lesbian, polyamorous lifestyle. And, you know, at this time, I was still I was still doing the sex work. I was still a dominatrix, not prostituting, but a dominatrix. And I was still a witch, kind of. I didn't know what to do with all of that yet. All I knew is I was on fire for Jesus. And I still thought of myself as being a lesbian, even though I hadn't been in a relationship for a couple years. And I was single and living alone. You know, but I had lived that way for, I don't know, more than a decade, 12, 13 years or something like that. And was like this local cultural icon and celebrity in my community. Okay? So a lot of renown. People looked up to me and respected me. They looked to me for advice. They looked to me for edification, for I was helping people, healing. I was a healer. So there's just a lot there. I didn't want to go be around church people. But I wanted to get baptized. I wanted to be a disciple of Jesus. He was the one. I had met a lot of teachers in my life and in my explorations. I've met some phenomenal teachers. Absolutely phenomenal. Truly enlightened. In some way in touch with God, not Christians, but somehow connected and in touch with God. I don't know how. There's a mystery there that I respected greatly, and I've learned so much from, and have really helped me on my path to be a better person, and to walk in a good way, to live in a right way. But I didn't want to be their disciple. But I wanted to be Jesus's disciple more than anything I'd ever wanted in my life. So, the night I was supposed to leave, this loved one of mine had an overdose, accidental overdose. And there was no way I was going to leave. Just no way. And so but I couldn't go and be with this person in the hospital because they were on hold. So when someone has an overdose like that, the hospital, a standard practice is to put the person on hold for 8 to 10 hours while they're under observation, to make sure that they don't, when they start to kind of come to, the medication can wear off and their body might not have processed all of that drug yet, and so they can start to overdose again, and so they just want to keep that person under close watch and not have any visitors during that period of time. And so that was the case. So I couldn't sleep. I had prayed myself pretty much out, prayed myself into total exhaustion. And there wasn't a whole lot else that I could do at this point in time. And I was totally exhausted, but I just could not sleep. So I was laying in bed, and also I was battling for I was battling for my loved one's life, but I was also battling for my life, because I knew that it's hard because it's not a narcissistic thing. that I'm referring to. So my loved ones' battles are unique and genuine. And I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not here to speak of their experience. That's for them to speak about. And I wouldn't want to even try to do that. And when we love someone deeply and they go through something like this, we ourselves have our own experiences. And so I'm only speaking about my own experience and knowing that the enemy of our souls was attacking my loved one through this vulnerability as a way of attacking me. It's like 2 birds, 1 stone kind of deal. And so I was fighting for both of our lives, and ultimately for all of my family, as the chain breaker in my family. And so I was just determined. This is not going to stop me. I was going to get baptized this weekend. I'm going to find a place that is going to baptize me ASAP, the soonest one I can find. It has to be a full immersion baptism, and I'm going to find it. And so I wasn't sleeping. I was just on my phone looking for a place to get baptized. There were a few places nearby that were doing this. There were, I think, exactly 3, maybe 4 places that were doing immersion baptisms within the next month. And 2 of them were like mega churches, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm not. No way. And then there was one place that was entirely, not entirely staffed by men, but it was only men in leadership roles, and the few women that were in part of it, that were staff, were in like roles like secretarial roles. And I was like, no way, I'm a dominatrix. Like, no. I'm not doing that. No way. There's absolutely no way. I need a place that's going to accept me. I can't just like go to I can't submit myself to that kind of a man who's like has that kind of like dogmatic belief in like only men can be in leadership roles, and only men can preach, and only men can teach, and only men can prophesy, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, there was just no way, and I knew that they would look down on me, and I just could not put myself in that position. So that left me with exactly one place to go. And I'm not going to name that place, but I will say that the Lord is so good. He led me to the most spirit-filled church. And ironically, it's almost entirely led by women, which is not what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for that because I respect men, and I respect men's leadership, and I love and respect masculinity a great deal. And you know, the Lord is the one who leads me now, and who I am submitted to. I'm not married. I haven't been married for a long time, and there are no no, I don't have any love interests or anything like that in my life, and that's not up to me at all, and I'm not even seeking that out, or in any way. But I respect men, and I respect the leadership of men, men of God specifically, men of God who are embodying their role in the way that Christ defines it. So I wasn't really looking for female leadership. It just is ironic that that's what it is, and I didn't even know that at the time. But I just, I don't know. The Lord drew me to this church, and they were having a baptism, a full immersion baptism, 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. And so I was determined to make this happen, to not be thwarted by the enemy. And I think this was like the middle of the week, maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday. That Sunday I went to church. Was it that Sunday? No. The following Sunday, whenever that was, so it was the following Sunday, I went to the church to go to one of their services to see what it was like. And I was still very resistant, but I went because the Lord told me to go. So I went. And then and they had like a little card that I could fill out, get to know the pastor, talk a little bit, and sign. There were different things you could sign up for. And so I signed up. I said I wanted to be baptized. I met with the pastor the following week after church, and we talked for a bit. I gave most of the lowdown, not everything. I did not reveal everything about myself right away because it's a lot to take in. And then the following weekend I got baptized, and I think I've missed maybe 3 days of church service since then. It's become my family, and it's the most amazing community, and the Lord just put me right exactly where I needed to be. And I think this is a long video. Oh yeah, it's a long video. So I'm just gonna testify just a little bit more here because it's already almost 2 hours long. So why not just go full bore for you? But I don't think it'll be that much longer. So that was the first year and a half. Then I got baptized. And then the following year, more spiritual warfare came against me. More warfare. And I think I've done a video about this, what to expect when you say yes, especially when you've been immersed in the darkness. So it's important to know, that everything isn't peaches and sunshine after you get saved, because there's this whole process of sanctification that has to happen. It's a cleansing. And I don't know if you've ever done any kind of cleanse, like dietary cleanse of any kind, or had to be on a special restricted diet for medical reasons or anything like that, but it's not pleasant. It's not a pleasant experience. But it's purposeful, and it's something to be grateful for. because on the other side of it, things are much better in life. And so, I had to, the Lord kind of walked me through some things of, what's in my life right now that is, who is it serving? Is it serving me? Is it serving God? Is it serving the enemy of my soul? I had to really look at those things, and the Lord started to convict me about those things, and what I mean by that is he started to correct my thinking. He started to disciple me and teach me, and I started to have to make changes accordingly in order to walk out this relationship that I had entered into. And I can tell you that his correction is the most amazing and loving thing I've ever experienced in my life. It's very different than anything I ever knew growing up when it comes to like being corrected or disciplined. It's not the way that people picture it as being. It's not painful. Difficult, yes. Challenging, yes. Painful, no. Because it is all wrapped up in the love of our Father. And that love is the most beautiful and amazing thing anyone can ever experience. And so, and gentle, so gentle. I can't get over it, how gentle, kind. And he started to put new desires in my heart and new thoughts in my mind. And I started to not have the same kind of struggles in my heart and in my mind that I had once had. Things that used to be so important to me just didn't matter anymore. Things that I would be offended by, things that I would get triggered by, those things didn't really affect me anymore. My heart started to change. I started to see the world in a different way. I started to truly love humanity, and though I still treasure my time apart from humanity, because people can be a lot, I love people in a way I've never loved people before, and that includes people that I actually loved before. I love people the way I've never ever been able to love before, and I used to think I was a compassionate person, and I am sure I was more compassionate than most, more empathetic than the average person, but it pales in comparison to the compassion of Jesus Christ and the compassion of our Father. And that's the kind of compassion I want to live with. I want to be like that. I want to love like that. And so, yeah, the attacks actually increased, and became more phenomenal, more tangible, and more direct. So as I contended for my loved one, and that person started to come out of their own struggles, and I also started to get support from my new community, and people were praying for me, warring in the spirit for me and my family that they barely even knew. They didn't even know my history. They didn't know my sordid past. They didn't know the shameful things that I had done. But they just loved me anyway. They just loved me. They just accepted me as I was, as a new creation in Christ, and battled for me, and stood alongside me, and contended with me, and took time out of their days to to pray with me, and to pray deliverance over me and with me and for me. But never taking the battle out of my hands. Never doing it in my place, but alongside me. Because it was very clear that the Lord wanted me to stand on my own 2 feet and defeat the devil myself. And that, there's that process is truly, it's an ongoing process. I don't think it changes and it wanes, but that doesn't mean that the devil's not gonna see if he can get one off on you here and there. But I have had like the strangest things happen, like these just accidents happening. I suffered out of the blue this very disabling it's not an injury, it is a disability, adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder, which is the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced in my life. And I have given birth to 3 children and then some. And I was a BDSM model. I've been literally tortured, and I have suffered abuse, and this was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. And maybe some of that is due to forgetting the physical experience of certain things, but it truly was excruciating. It was awful. And then it became debilitating, and I was unable to do anything. And after the Lord had convicted my heart about being a dominatrix, and I had arrived at the conclusion that I needed to stop, and I also do healing body work and massage, and have a degree in physical therapy, and I've been doing that for like 35 years. I just figured I would transition, I would do body work, and then the Lord was leading me or inspiring me toward this idea of doing coaching, therapeutic coaching with people, because I was already kind of doing that with people. And so taking all of my talents and using them for God's kingdom and in a righteous way, and the knowledge set that I have and stuff. And so I was moving in that direction, but I had a lot to shift in my life. I had a lot of cleaning to do, a lot of decluttering to do, I had to get rid of a lot of stuff, so much stuff, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment and costuming and props and stuff, and that I have been, collecting and using over like the course of 20 years worth of stuff, of this livelihood of performing and the sex work, and so I was in this transitional state, but I had stopped being a dominatrix. I had let go of all my clients and come out to all of them, and maybe not all, but the ones that that I had a good rapport with, that were really close. I mean, it's just something else. That's a whole different topic. But I had, had conversations with multiple people about my experience with Jesus, and that I was changing my life, and that I was going to be leaving this lifestyle. And so I was in this whole process when I started to experience this pain. I thought I could still do the body work despite the pain. I've always done physical work, always, my whole life. And I was also doing some work for my landlord to get my rent reduced at the time, some cleaning work. And I this just hit me, like right in the middle of all of that. This injury, it's not an injury. At first I thought it was an injury. At first I thought, oh, I've done something to my shoulder. I overdid it, and I'm injured. Let me rehab it. I know what to do. Let me do it. I'll do all the things. I'm really good at that. I'm excellent when it comes to taking care of my body and my health, because I've lived most of my life without insurance. And also I am an anti-establishmentarian, and I am I'm not completely anti-Western medicine, because there are good uses for it, but it is very clear to me that they have gone way overboard, and that's been clear to me for a very long time, because it was very early on. All my experience, I was a hospital corpsman in the United States Navy Reserves, and I worked in physical therapy, and back in the 90s is when I saw what was rolling down the road in the healthcare system, and I knew that I did not trust it. And I had had enough experiences in my own life seeking help for various different things and not receiving it, and being gaslit by the system, and being given medications that only made things worse, and being the mother of children who were treated that way. I was just like, no way. No. So I'm, long story, that's a long-winded way of saying that I have always taken really good care of myself, because I'm the only one that I've ever had to lean on for my health. And so I started to do all the things that I would tell someone else to do. I started to treat myself the way that I would treat someone else if they were coming to me for physical therapy. But it kept changing and shifting and being different. And one day I thought, oh, it seems like a rotator cuff injury. Oh, it seems like a sprain. Oh, it seems like bursitis. Oh, it seems like I maybe have a slip disc in my neck. Oh, I have some kind of nerve injury. And I kept changing around. And like the day before I started having pain in my shoulder, I had this crazy experience where my knee swelled up a lot. And that had never happened. I sometimes get sore knees, but that had never happened before. And it was just like random out of the blue. I had this big swollen knee. I hadn't done anything to it. And then the next day, I started to have this pain in my shoulder. And I was suspecting, there was a part of me that was suspecting that there was some kind of witchcraft or something was going on. And at this point, I just didn't, I would rule anything out, And then over the course of time, as I was recovering from all of this, or trying to recover from all this, not realizing what was really going on for a while, that was a year ago, November, that started. And then I want to say in January is when I started to experience, like I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't lift my arm. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't carry things in my arm. I couldn't put my clothes on, and that just started to get worse and worse. And then I started to have these crazy accidents involving random people riding by on a bicycle, and this cat that I later figured out was demonized. And then I rebuked the cat, and the cat doesn't bother me any longer, except for like not too long ago. It was like, oh, maybe, and it ran out in front of my car, and I've never seen it in that part of the neighborhood before. And just, things like this happening a lot, an uncanny number of times. And also, being attacked in my dreams, having like giant women trying to seduce me in my dreams and standing over me, and having people in my dreams trying to like sit on top of me, and a lot of like weird sexual innuendos. I had a whole conversation with the devil who was wearing the form of a celebrity, a man, where he was contending with me and trying to trick me. And and then dealing with actual entities in my home, and being able to see them in my home. And then also, as time has gone on, I've been able to see what I'm pretty sure are angels in my home. And a couple other things I just want to testify to, some miracles that have happened. So for one thing about this injury that I've had, so in January I stopped being able to move. I started to have limited movement, and then I want to say by March I had like hardly any movement at all in my shoulder. And I was resistant because, again, I was, at this point in time, I had no form of work. I was living off my savings. I hadn't expected to go through all of my savings, because I thought it was just going to be short term and that I would recover quickly. And as I was doing all the right things, which my medical which my physical therapist has affirmed, that I have done all the right things. And I didn't have insurance, so how was I going to go and see somebody? And I was just trying to like stretch my dollars out, and but I couldn't work. I just could not work. I couldn't even sit in front of a computer. I couldn't even sit like this for longer than half an hour. I couldn't do any of the cleaning out or clearing out that, that I have been sort of assigned to do and tasked to do. I couldn't do, I've been working on writing something that the Lord has had me writing that I really couldn't sit and do at all. I just, nothing, there was nothing I could do. I could read my Bible, I could pray, I could rest. Walk my dog. It was painful even to walk my dog. And funnily enough, like the Lord had put it on my heart to start using a belt. They have these belts that you can hook your leash up to. And I got it as a treat for myself. I think that summer before, I was just like, oh, that's, I'm sure I'm going to get that. It's kind of expensive, but I'm going to get it. And so I got it, and then, boy, oh boy, it has been such a blessing to have, because I haven't, even with my good arm, walking my dog, who can get very excited about stuff and is kind of a rescue that I've had to work hard to train. Like, she'll still sometimes pull, and that was just so much on my body. Way too much. So it's so funny how the Lord works. And so as I was realizing that I was running out of money, and also like I was very isolated. And all my friend group didn't really know how to react to me, and I wasn't doing body work anymore, so I didn't have that human connection with people anymore, and I just was extremely isolated, and I know that that's all for a purpose, right? But I didn't have anyone to turn to. I didn't have anyone that I could say, hey, I need financial support. I need help. I barely knew my church people, and I certainly didn't feel comfortable asking them for money. I feel comfortable asking anybody for money. I've been working in one way or the other since I was a kid. So but I was in a place of desperation because things were not changing and shifting, and me going into battle, and my other prayer warriors going into battle was not shifting it. And all of my supplications were not shifting it. And the Lord really was, instructing me to go get help, to go to the doctor. I didn't want to, but I did. I went to the doctor. And my first experience was terrible, because I went to a community clinic, a free clinic, and she had no idea what she was talking about. I should have gotten her paycheck for that day, because I pretty much was like, well, I knew more than she knew. She didn't know anything. But what she did do was she wrote me a referral. And so I then took that referral and got in to see an orthopedic doctor, who I also had to kind of walk through what was going on with me. And by that time I had figured it out. I had figured it out by that time. What was the deal? What was going on with me? And then I got sent for an MRI. I insisted on an MRI because I had already had an X-ray, and there wasn't anything showing up. And I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to see if there were any tears or anything going on. I didn't want to wait to find out. I wanted to know before we started anything what we were dealing with. So we got the MRI, and there were no injuries. It was just adhesive capsulitis that just occurred. It's called idiopathic. It just happens out of nowhere. So out of nowhere, this thing happened to me. Out of nowhere. I mean, I do fit the demographic of people that it tends to happen to, more to women than to men in their middle age who have hormonal imbalances, and I am postmenopausal. So, so all those things are the case. And, yeah. So, but then I got recommended for physical therapy, and again I had to advocate ferociously for myself because she kept talking about all of these crazy, radical, extreme things that there was no way I was going to do. I'm not going to take a bunch of drugs. I'm not going to have a surgery. I'm not going to get stuff shot into my shoulder. I'm not going to get saline exploded into my shoulder capsule. I'm not going to get all these extreme, violent, intrusive things. We're going to start with a Hippocratic oath, first do no harm, and we'll work from there. Which is the way it ought to be. So, kudos to her for paying attention and for doing the right thing and recommending physical therapy. I have the best physical therapist. In the meantime, I was just like, I'm just going to go to a chiropractor. I have no idea where any of this money is coming from, but I'm just going to go because I know if I go to a chiropractor, I'm going to get the kind of treatment that I want to get, that I know is right for me. I cannot do this on my own. I need help. And then eventually I found a massage therapist that I could work with, who just so happened to randomly have 3 people who had frozen shoulder that she had never experienced in all her years of doing massage therapy. All of a sudden that same year she had 3 people before me who had seen her for frozen shoulder. And the chiropractor that I just randomly saw, that I found on a Groupon for like $25 for the first visit, also was an expert in shoulders. And they're all 3 of these people align with my philosophy about healing, which is that the body is designed for self-healing, and there are some things that we can do to help facilitate that, and there's other things that we do that actually get in the way and cause more harm. And so the least invasive things is the best things to start with. And so this team of people has just been phenomenal, and my chiropractor said she's never seen anybody recover so quickly. And I am almost now it's almost a year, not quite a year, since I first started with the symptoms of pain. Loss of mobility began in January, but then really hit hard starting in March or April. And then I started therapy in June, the beginning of June. So, and now we are in October. So June, July, August, September. So and every single time I've gone into the physical therapist, there's been like a big leap in my ability. And so I know that that's the Lord, and that He's wanted this healing to happen incrementally for me, to teach me some things. And He's been humbling me a lot. And but I just praise God. All glory goes to Him. That I'm like a hair from being back to normal. I don't have the strength that I used to have, but that's you know, that's a simple thing to build strength. I have all confidence that I will rebuild my strength now that I have mobility, almost full mobility back. And so I consider that a miracle. And I know that the Lord has brought me through this as a way to help to sanctify me. I've learned so much through this process about waiting and relying on Him and resting. He's had me rest for so long, and I've wanted to work, and I've wanted to work, and I wanted to work, and He's just been like telling me, no, you work for me now. He made me start this YouTube channel. You know, well, He didn't make me, I chose to do it, but He instructed me to start this YouTube channel. But there's also been other things in that. In the midst of that, my beloved dog suddenly came down with this infection that almost killed her. And in the meantime, they found this giant tumor on her pancreas. And that was looking like a $10,000 life-saving surgery. I was so fortunate to find this Mission Animal Hospital that's the only kind of its kind in the entire country that is 15 minutes away from me, that was able to do the surgery for like a third of that amount. And I've got it on a payment plan. And I've also, like, she's had like weird little growths and things like in her eye and different areas of her body that I've prayed over, and she's been healed from. I had when somebody's moving some of my bondage equipment out that I sold to somebody, and it's just so funny how the devil works, you know. And so the people that were moving it out were sort of not as graceful as they could have been, and there was just a snafu, and in the midst of it, the fire extinguisher fell off the wall, and I was moving something else that had gotten bumped. And as I was moving that thing, the fire extinguisher fell and crushed the tip of my pinky. The tip of my pinky. This one right here. And, you know, the Lord kept telling me to take a picture of it. And I kept meaning to and forgetting. It turned black. The entire tip, this whole last part of the last digit of my pinky, was completely black all the way around, and the fingernail was blanched. And I've had this happen before with my toe. I dropped something super heavy, and you know, I thought for sure I was going to lose the fingernail, and I was really certain that I probably had fractured it, like, because it was crushed. And fire hydrants are heavy, and you know. And then 3 days later, it was back to normal. My pinky was back to normal. That's a miracle. I'm certain it was fractured. There's no way that happens and you don't break your finger. But I prayed over it, and is back to normal. I do have, like, there is this tiny which you can't see on the camera because it's just too small, but there's like this teeny tiny little like dark purple dot that's been there ever since. And maybe it's a blood blister or something, I don't know, under my fingernail, like right in the corner right there. So small, it's like a pinprick. But it's totally normal. 3 days later. I did start a fundraiser. I had asked some people to help me that weren't helping me, and I had sold some equipment that I allowed people to take out of my house, who then, were going to owe me. They're people that I had always been good for it in the past, in regards to paying me. But they haven't paid me yet, and it's a pretty big sum. And I was really counting on that money to help see me through. And then I had asked a bunch of people to help me, to create a fundraiser. I wanted to do like a big sale. I needed people to help me because I couldn't do it myself. But people kept putting me off, and it just wasn't working out. And then I had asked for help creating an online fundraiser, and it was sort of the same thing that happened. And I had asked a good friend of mine who wanted to help me, but she had her own experience, and she had a head injury, and so she was unable to help me. And so I created my own fundraiser online, but I haven't told a ton of people, and the people that I did tell about it wound up getting angry. Like, I'm not advertising a fundraiser, and it just feels weird to even do. And so, like, I didn't really tell my family, and I didn't really tell people in my church too much, and I did send it out to other people, friends. I don't know why I did it that way. I'm still not really certain why I felt comfortable telling some people and not others. But I did send it out to all my old friends from my old life. And fundraisers on Give Send Go, and that's a Christian site, and I liked it because they stood up for the truckers in Canada when the banks didn't want to give them their money, and when Justin Trudeau was being a tyrant and interfering with their ability to actually, like, I don't know, get paid for services rendered, and be able to pay their mortgages and take care of their families and feed themselves. And also, I liked that they have a prayer button. I like that. I like that there's a scripture that pops up. I think that's inspiring. But apparently there are, because it's a Christian site, they don't support certain people raising money on their site. And then they support other people raising money on their site, and it just did not fit well with people's identity politics and all of that. And so I had people. I had a friend of mine who posted it on her Facebook page, because I'm not on social media. So I was asking people that I knew to post it to their social media and to share this with other people, and please help me out. I really need the help. And, this, all people that I have supported a lot in the past. And one of my dearest friends who posted this started to get, blowback for posting it. Unbeknownst to either she or I, that there were these things that were unapproved of by by, you know, I don't know, the liberal gatekeepers. You cannot raise money for yourself if someone else on that platform has done something that they deem as being bad. And which is just ridiculous because, I mean, Facebook, you know, is filled with sexual predators preying on children and people doing snuff porn and all kinds of crazy stuff all the time. So I just, like, I don't get it. But you know, so that became like this huge thing, but not very many people actually spoke to me directly. Most people just stopped talking to me or didn't respond. I had some people say, I can't support you. I had some people say, oh, I'll help you find a job. Which has never been an issue for me. I did have one good friend say, can we talk? We got together and she was like, I heard that you're in a cult. Kudos to her for having a direct conversation with me about it. And I know it's challenging to hear my testimony, but it is what it is. It's what's real for me. And then I had a dear friend of mine that we've just been through a lot together, but she just one day told me that she was going to have to love me from afar. And, you know, and the issue was less about me being a Christian and more about me using that website and then also expressing my support for Robert F. Kennedy. So, you know, I view that as spiritual warfare, for sure. And it is what it is because I am not leaving the arms of Jesus. So, but also at the same time, it really makes clear like who is for me and who is not for me. You get to know who your real allies are in times like these. And so I'm grateful for that. And somehow, I don't know, it's just been a miracle. I believe the grace of God that enough money has trickled through that fundraiser to keep me above water, barely above water, thousands and thousands of dollars in debt, which, you know, I was not in debt prior to this. I had a tiny amount of debt prior to this, but a drop in the bucket. And I also had $31,000 set aside for a down payment on a house, which I no longer have. But those things are all material things. So it's interesting to me, like the devil comes against us in these ways and he tries to hit us, you know, where it hurts, and he tries to take from us the things that are important, you know, the worldly things that are important and the earthly things that are important, you know, and yet the whole time the Lord has been taking care of me. He's been healing me. He's been healing my loved ones in just amazing ways, healing my relationships, the important ones. He healed my dog. He healed my broken Peaky. And he's been opening the door for me. I will be doing my first session of body work again next week. See how that goes. I have some work helping a Christian content creator, helping people to shift their spending out of the system of the beast, out of the machine, and into American made goods, things that cannot be controlled by BlackRock. So yet to bear fruit, but that's not really true. It is bearing fruit. It is serving a purpose. I know that it's, that the Lord has brought me here for a purpose, and that it's preparing me for whatever He has next for me. And there will be money that comes from it. I just haven't seen that money yet because it's commissions. So I don't know. I've been talking for a long time, a little bit more than an hour and 40 minutes. Okay. I thought I had been speaking for 2 hours already. but that's plenty in any case. So I think we're all caught up to where I am now. I haven't spoken really about this experience of the Lord giving me words and stuff, but I think I'll save that for another day. I think this is just a good testimony of the Lord is so good. He is so good. So it's been a little bit more than a year now since I was baptized. So, a little bit more than 2.5 years since I was saved or born again. And life is life is just full of challenges, but the Lord is here to help us, and and actually He will fight for us if we can just stop. One of the biggest lessons for me through all of this has been to rest and just to allow Him to do the fighting for me, because I have just been fighting for myself for so long, and for my family and for my kids for so long. I haven't known anything else. No one has taken care of me. No one has fought for me. No one has protected me. That's never happened for me. I've been married. I've been partnered. I've had very serious relationships that I thought were going to last a lifetime. Exactly two that I thought were forever relationships. Which is funny. I'm just, the Lord has broken off some of these things for me, but and healed me from so much. So I'm no longer in that. I no longer, have that thing, but I did believe in them, and if circumstances have been different, they may very well have been lifetime long relationships, one most in particular, but no one has ever protected me. No one has ever protected me or fought for me, fought to protect me, fought to love me, fought to keep me, except for the Lord. He's the one. And it has taken me a lot to learn how to trust in that and believe that it's real. Because I've never known anything like that in this corporal life, in this flesh. I've never known that. But now I know that. And it's not from an earthly man. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And I know I just feel like I feel like I am barely scratching the surface with this, testifying to the things that I'm testifying to. And some of it I'm being vague because I want to protect certain people. I want to protect their right to tell their own story in their own way and in their own time. And I don't want to take away from that. And I've made that mistake in the past of giving too much information because of how it impacted me. And I'm just not doing that anymore. So I am being vague in some ways. And you may or may not believe me about the things that I'm saying, about the growths that the little, skin tumors and things, and the healing, the broken finger, the healing in my shoulder. You might just chalk that up to physical therapy, but it's more than that. And the deliverance, I've had some deeply profound spiritual experiences, and I'm not unaccustomed to spiritual warfare, but man, oh man, if the Lord puts his hand on you and puts his anointing on you, the devil will do everything he can to stop it. He will do everything he can to turn you away. And you do have to fight for it. It's a balance, right? The Lord will fight for you, but you must also fight for the Lord. It just is the way it is. So I'm grateful to be where I'm at right now, and I'm grateful to be able to share this with you, and that the Lord has instructed me to do this. To share boldly, and perhaps at some point I will share other details more boldly. And I hope that it's helpful. I hope that whoever you are, as you're listening to this, that it encourages you, and that it speaks to some part of you that needs to hear this right now, and to know that the Lord is always, 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 always with us, even when we don't think that he is with us, even when we are caught up in our sin, even when we don't know his name or how to call upon him. He is with us. He is watching over us. He is shining the light. He is making a way, and that way is Jesus. That way is Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, the Messiah. He died for us so that we could defeat the devil, so that we will defeat the devil. And in fact, he did defeat the devil. And so when I say we can or we will defeat the devil, what I really mean is that we can or we will stand on the finished work of the cross. We will stand in faith, knowing that it has already been done for us, and all we need to do is say yes to it, to embrace it and say yes. And there is nothing our Father will not do for us. There is nothing he won't do for us. He will give us the entire world if we will just fight to stand in the finished work of the cross, in faith, knowing that is for us, that he is for us. So I pray that you hear this. I pray that this just touches you in some kind of way, and that some part or multiple parts of this resonate inside of you, awaken perhaps some seeds that have already been planted within you, and call you home to the good Father who wants to give good gifts to his children and bring you home into the promise that he has for us all. I pray that for you. For you. He is waiting for you. Say yes. Till next time.